Okay, you are recording.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight for our webinar regarding raising independent learners. Tonight, our group of panelists are going to be discussing how to help children learn to self-monitor, establish daily routines, how you as parents can create and follow behavior plans, also how you can help your children learn to develop self-advocacy skills, just to name a few. The panelists for the webinar tonight include Ryerson Elementary School psychologist Lauren Stanko, Brown Intermediate Language Arts Social Studies teacher Stephanie Fumiati, Polson Middle School Language Arts Program Coordinator Pamela Kendrick, Daniel Hand High School Science Coordinator Paul Mezek, and Daniel Hand High School Principal Anthony Salutary. Our webinar this evening will last approximately 25 minutes. If you have any questions throughout, please feel free to type them into the chat. We will take about 5 minutes at the end to answer them this evening. Again, we thank you all for taking the time to be with us this evening.
So I'm Lauren Stanko. I'm the school psychologist this year at Ryerson. So elementary school is really a great time to start building those skills necessary to be an independent learner. So a lot of what I'll be talking about is related to behavior and how you can begin to shape that in the home. So first, it really helps to have consistent routines. Research continues to show that routines, structure, and boundaries create a sense of safety and just an overall environment that's conducive to learning. So when you make routines, you really want to meet your younger children where they are by breaking the routine into small, specific steps. So an older kid might be able to just get ready to go to bed, but a younger kid, you might have to break that into, shower, brush your teeth, put your clothes in the hamper, etc. And then you can use the routines really as a chance to bond or catch up with your child about their day. Try to make it fun, maybe play a song, put on an audiobook, or have visuals, whatever will make a mundane task more engaging for your child. And routines take time to stick. So, don't be hard on yourself if things don't go as planned at first. Your child will get used to the expectations if you stick to them. And another part of becoming an independent learner is the ability to self-monitor or observe, evaluate, and adjust your own behavior. So for example, going back to check your work before you hand it in. There are a lot of visuals out there, checklists, especially for younger children. There are social stories and books out there to help break down and really build these skills. And then you can help your own child reflect on their behavior, because a lot of times with younger kids, they don't even realize they might not be paying attention, things like that. So you can point it out by saying, I noticed you were moving around a lot. Was it difficult for you to sit for 15 minutes, and help them reflect? And give them the opportunity to correct their behavior. You can say things like, I can see you're not listening right now. Can you show me what a good listener looks like? And for some children, that will be enough. Others might need some more support and explicit instruction. So these are just some of the basics for establishing a behavior plan with your child. You want to start by choosing just 1 to 2 behaviors to focus on, because any more will just be overwhelming. You want to clearly define and model the expected behavior for your child. And you want to frame them as a positive. So almost every problem behavior that you're going to want to change can be written as the expected or appropriate behavior. So instead of saying no talking back, your child's goal could be, I will follow directions the first time. And then consistency is key. Things might actually get worse before they get better because you're implementing something new for the child. But if you stick with it, the child will start to internalize the expected behavior, which is really the goal at this age. And it's also most effective to give positive reinforcement instead of punishment when you're trying to shape a behavior. So this means giving the child something desirable in order to increase a behavior. It can be as simple as verbal praise. It can be time doing a preferred activity, like screen time or going outside. It can be stickers or tokens on a chart if your child needs something more visual. And for some kids, you might have to start with something more tangible, nothing big, but something they can work toward. And again, we want to meet the child where they are. You know, ask yourself, how often do they actually need a reinforcer? Does it have to be after every time they do the behavior? Can they wait maybe for the end of the week to get something? You know your child best. Does it have to be something tangible, or can you reward them with something they enjoy doing and build it into their routine? So if you do your homework, then you can go outside. Really, at this age, we're building the framework for good habits, and then over time, the good habits will be rewarding in themselves. And so that's where I'll pass it over to middle school.
Hi everyone, I'm Stephanie Fumiati. I am a 5th grade language arts teacher at Brown. So I want to start with one of the most critical pieces of fostering independent learners, and that's just as simple as believing in your child. It's absolutely critical to let your child know that you have faith in his or her ability. And when children grow up constantly receiving help with homework, studying for tests, or creating projects for school, they can begin to feel dependent on the assistance and start to feel unsure of themselves. And we might want to try telling our children, I know that you can do this. You're the picture of perseverance. Keep going until you figure this out. I know you can get there. And we want to allow them to work through their challenges rather than doing the work for them. And you'll know when they really do need your help. We want to encourage the progress, process, and effort. So in order to help foster independent learners, we want to make sure that that's what we're focusing on. It can be very easy to get into the habit of extrinsically praising or rewarding our child's results. So for example, we might say something like, I'm so proud of you for getting an A on your math test, or you get $10 every time you get an A on your report card. But when we do this, we put all the focus on the results rather than the progress or the improvement. So this can put pressure on the child and make them feel like they must do whatever it takes to get the best grade, even if that means relying on you for help or even resorting to some type of cheating. So instead, we want to praise children for the effort that they do put in, the work that it took to get their grade, or the improvement that you see in their results because of their work ethic and their persistence. This might sound something like, I'm proud of you for working so hard on that assignment, or your perseverance while you figured out that problem was really impressive. When we reward our children for the action that they take rather than the results that they achieve, they're more likely to do it again and again and build their own self-confidence through that process. The next thing that we want to do is we want to try to create low stakes opportunities for independence. So what this means is that even with some of our youngest students, we want to allow them to take initiative and let them pick up. So it might be something like letting them pick up their own clothes, even if they don't match, let them make their bed, even if the sheets are rumpled, let them water the plants or set the table. It's those small tasks that show kids that they can be effective on their own. And as they get older, it gives them we can give them responsibilities and take more of a step back. We want our children to practice low stakes tasks on their own, so that when the stakes are higher, they'll have both the skills and the faith in themselves to move forward and confidently. So one of the biggest challenges to fostering independent learners is finding the right environment. So we ask ourselves, does this child thrive in a quiet room, or when there's people around, or when they're tucked away in a private nook? And generally speaking, as adults, we know how we work best. So we need to help our students find the type of workspace that works best for them. So that means we should try to work with our children to determine what type of space they need and what they need in their space in order to do their best work. So for example, maybe they need a stash of pens and paper, or they need a radio playing classical music. You want to work together and brainstorm with the children and allow them to create the space that they need. This way they can stay focused on their learning rather than asking you for items that they might need. And lastly, we want to give them space to grow. Stepping back can be one of the biggest challenges. And after all, we want our children to succeed and we want to help them. But sometimes the best way to be helpful is to allow them to work independently and figure things out on their own. While we should always be a safe haven for our child, and being part of our children's school can be fun, it can be social, and it can be helpful to the teachers, it's important to take a constructive look at our own involvement. And ask ourselves, is this something that is strengthening our child's learning or detracting from it? Because after all, self-assured independent learners become confident young adults who have faith in their ability to succeed, achieve, and overcome challenges.
Hi, everyone. My name is Pam Kendrick, and I am the K-8 English Language Arts Program Coordinator, and I'm also a grade 8 teacher at Polson. You'll see in the beginning that some of my suggestions will be very similar to Stephanie because it's transitioning over from Brown Intermediate, and then I'll actually move toward high school suggestions as middle school is right in the middle. So just like Stephanie had said, it's really important to have a structured home base for work production. There are a lot of interferences just with daily home life, and finding a spot for your children, a quiet atmosphere would be very helpful for them to work. As they're getting older though, they're going to want some autonomy. So if you could allow them to determine where they best would like to study, with of course some caveats, because if they can't complete their work in their room on their own, then they'll have to move to the dining room table. But it's important as they get older that they feel that they have some sense of ownership. A suggestion I also have is to shift from the term homework to the term home study. And that could really maximize independence and learning. Students would then be able to establish some long-term and short-term goals, and it will really help children be able to work on long-term projects or continue their reinforcing of their skills instead of just getting it done. Completion does not mean learning. And so asking a child, did you finish your homework, instead of maybe providing a home study time. And that can be broken up. You know, students at this age definitely need their brain breaks and their movement breaks. But to focus on that, then if they finish their homework in an hour, but still have a little bit more time for home study, then that's when they can pick up their books and they can read, or they can revise that essay one more time, practice their language vocabulary, and so forth. So trying to use the term home study instead of homework. Ask your child also how you may help. You know, try to continue with that partnership, which will be harder as the years go on. They may one day need an accordion folder, and another day want you to help revise their paper or provide a study buddy, and then just be aware that the next day they might need some space from you. That's the nature of the middle school beast. And since these are those transitional years, again, trying to meet your children in the middle, again, they do want that structure and guidance. They may say that they don't want that structure and guidance, but they definitely do want that structure and guidance. But there may be some fights along the way. Just like Stephanie and Lauren had also said, it's important to believe in your child, to praise that hard work. The middle school years at Polson are the first times that they're getting infinite campus grades. And that is a transition in of itself. And I know that it's very easy to focus on the grades because they're in infinite campus and so forth, especially as they move towards 7th and 8th grade on their way to high school. But a strong suggestion would be to praise the actions over grades and results. Praise their productive struggle, praise their improvement, praise their problem solving, those types of items, because the grades will improve if those types of items have been worked on first, and then they'll believe in themselves even more. And along those same lines though, as we move on to high school, they're going to want that independence, and you might think that they're ready for that independence, but they're not quite there yet. So not monitoring their homework at all. I do hear that, frequently from parents as they become in 8th grade, that they're ready for that. They're actually not ready for that. Maybe not check Infinite Campus every day, but maybe as a family, check it twice a week or on Sundays, that type of thing. Checking in, knocking on the door. Do you need anything? How may I help? So not that hovering, but not backing off completely either. And just some, technological tips even though we're in person for most students, there is quite a lot of online work. The students get a lot of emails. There's a lot of private comments within Google Classroom. They're just really learning how to navigate Infinite Campus as 6th graders. So any modeling that you can do on how to check, answer, and especially clear emails, because they get very overrun and they may lose something or misplace an important item. On my team, we have that as one of our slides under resources. We call it general housekeeping tips. So any suggestions that you can have in some modelings for that. To please make sure they have their Google Classroom notifications on for when teachers post items or put announcements in the stream. Teachers also provide feedback in classroom via private comments. They should be noticing them and applying the feedback toward any revision opportunities that we have. Also, in terms of anything that we post, and I know we're going to be talking about this at the high school level also in a minute, but posted rubrics, checklists, teachers have instructional videos for flipping the classroom. Those should all be paid attention to. They should be applied to their assignments. Encouraging short-term goals. Google Keep is a great spot where students can they can copy and paste some ideas from the internet that they might want to use. They can put a quick short-term goal into a doc and then put it over there, and then it's a nice spot where they can look at those goals and they can apply them. And to encourage the students to contact their teachers as much as possible, as opposed to the parents, and the student and the teacher can have a good relationship, a working relationship via Google Classroom or email. On resources, I also included a link called Toolkits for Families and Guardians, and that has a lot of information about everything Google Classroom. And so the more that the parents know about the platforms that we use, the more that you'll be able to encourage the children to be able to use them independently. And then what if they make a mistake? A lot of parents are very nervous about their children making a mistake at the middle school years because of grades and because they're getting ready for high school, but they're not in high school yet. And these are the years to allow the mistakes that will inevitably happen to happen. And coach them to contact their teachers when they run into a struggle. Let them work out a success plan with their teachers. All the teachers are very open to that. And then, like has already been said before, then come in and assist them when they really do need the help, not with the small things, but with the larger things. And that'll teach them to become more autonomous. There's also the idea of logical consequences. If they missed an email, if they missed an assignment, if the teacher had given them a few tries on a revision and it just didn't work out, let it go, let it happen, and they will become more independent, and that will get them ready for high school when the stakes do get to be more important. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Paul Mezick. I'm a science teacher and the science coordinator at Daneland High School. I think you're going to see a common theme here where everything seems to culminate at the high school. One of the things that I think is very important is developing lines of inquiry. And what that means is that students at the high school are routinely encouraged to take ownership of their learning and to become independent thinkers. One of the key criteria for helping students do that is for them to know and have clear goals and criteria for success. That would be making sure that your child is aware of the rubrics. Maybe they've looked at some exemplars. The other piece is that students need to know how and where to access really good information. And so instead of being very vague in their internet searches, they should be very sophisticated and try to channel their searches to find that very specific information. They also need to be able to evaluate the information that they find. They need to know whether it's valid information or if it's just fluff information. The other thing is that students, because they're going to have ownership of their own learning, they need to come up with ways to go through deductive reasoning and sort of formulate their own responses to the questions that they have. The other thing is at the high school, a lot of the activities are open-ended, and students are given an opportunity to personalize their learning with their own experiences. So as a parent, if you have a child who has an open-ended project, you may want to encourage them to sort of do something that interests them to make it a truly meaningful assignment to them. And then finally, a very important piece here is, I've noticed personally, is that students who are independent learners have a very strong support network that includes family, friends, and also classmates that they can collaborate with. So the next step in that process naturally would be, after you've done research, you're ready to submit an assignment, the most important piece is to then sort of take that assignment and self-assess. It's important that students understand that reflection is a constructive thing. It's an opportunity for them to learn. Again, knowing the expectations for what the assignment entails is very important. The students should look for exemplary work. Almost all teachers provide students with examples of different criteria work that is very good, work that is very poor, and often students will be asked to assess other work to get a feel for what the rubric is. I think it's very important for students to be accepting of critique from their peers. In that support network that I mentioned on the previous slide, I know that students who are independent learners tend to share their work with other friends and family and have them provide some feedback for them before they submit. Another key ingredient here would be maintaining a portfolio of your work, so that over a course of time, you might sit down with your child and you might look at an assignment that they did at the beginning of the year, and then maybe look at the progression to see if the feedback they're getting from their teacher matches the progression in the work that they're producing. And the other piece there is to create a culture that promotes self-advocacy and nurtures self-awareness. At some point, students are going to be aware of their shortcomings and they're going to need to ask for help. So building self-advocacy really is a foundation on asking and encouraging students to ask for help. And it really stems from having self-esteem. If students feel confident in their schoolwork, in their shortcomings, and in talking with teachers and parents, they're going to ask for help. And it's very important that students are aware of that, because at the high school level, it's going to be a little bit different than the middle school and the elementary school. They're going to be, again, guiding their own learning. And so they're going to need to ask for help when they need it. Self-awareness, know your interests, strengths, and weakness. Know your responsibilities as a learner. Students are going to need to know at the high school what they're responsible for, what aspects of assignments. And as a parent, you can ask them, what is the part that the teacher is expecting you to do? What are the expectations of this assignment? Students also need to know what their support needs are. What kind of help would be better for them? Where can they get those resources? Who can they see? The other thing is modeling appropriate behaviors when teaching students to self-advocate. As a parent, myself, I always try to model for my kids when I need help, how to actually go about doing that. And I think if students see how to go about accessing help, that they'll be able to do that on their own.
So that concludes our webinar this evening. As you all can see, we have provided some resources. The webinar will actually be posted on our website tomorrow so that you can access this information if you'd like to visit these websites. Mr. Salutary, were there any questions posted in the chat that we need to address?
Actually, we only had one question, Sherry, and you actually might have two now. The first one was, will there be access to the slides somewhere later? And you mentioned that they will be on the website tomorrow, and that was helpful. And we just had another question come in that states, in times of COVID with distance learning, I see and hear a hesitancy to speak up. Is this different in person, and do you agree? I'd like to jump in if I could, Sherry, on that one.
Absolutely.
I had a discussion with the coordinators at the high school level, actually this afternoon. And we've had a few students share personally with me in meetings that when students are in the remote learning phase, when their cohort's home more specifically, if there's questions or concerns, usually around technology, like for example, they can't hear the teacher, they seem for whatever the reason to be much more hesitant in speaking up and asking or telling the teacher that there's a concern. So we at the high school level today asked coordinators to communicate with all teachers to just remind students that it's okay. As Mr. Mezek said a few moments ago, helping students be self-advocates. We have to help them understand that we want them to speak up, but we also have to remind them that it's okay, because it's not an easy situation, and we definitely have noticed this for the students who are in the online learning phase of the hybrid model. And great timing, as we literally had that conversation this afternoon.
All right, if there are no other questions, again, we thank you for your time this evening, and you will be able to find this information on our website tomorrow. Have a great evening.